Welcome to the show, everybody. This time around, we're doing something a little different. Something I like to call verses. What do I mean by that? Well, it's simple. Take the Beatles, for example. They're notorious for having different versions of the same album released on either side of the Atlantic. So I thought it'd be fun to figure out which version I liked better. And we're going to start with their 1965 classic, Rubber Soul, UK versus USA. Now, some of you may be wondering why there are two versions in the first place. Well, I really can't go into all the reasons why. I can tell you that a big part of it was that back in the 60s, it was standard for albums in the UK to have 14 tracks, but in the US, albums only contained 12. One explanation says that US labels were concerned about fidelity loss due to putting too many songs on each side, although I'm inclined to agree with another explanation that points to American record companies able to sell more albums by putting less songs on each record. See, you gotta understand that back then, albums were really just collections of singles. So the idea of an album as we know it today didn't come until later. What makes Rubber Soul so interesting is that on the surface, the two versions would appear to be the same album. So you would think Capitol just left out two songs, one per side. But no, not only did they cut out two songs, they replaced two other songs with two songs from the UK version of Help. Are you confused yet? I am. Moving on. The front cover for both the UK and the USA versions are the same, save for the logos for the respective record labels. Incidentally, this was the first Beatles album not to feature their name on the front cover. The distinct stretch look came from an accident when the slide projector used to demo what the album cover would look like was loaded improperly, and the Beatles loved the look. They asked the photographer to print out the photo just like that, and the rest is history. So the main difference here is the color saturation. The UK release featured an orange Rubber Soul logo, whereas the US releases vary between like this dark brown and even an almost golden color. On the back, it's virtually the same. It's a tough choice because I really like the layout on the photos of the UK version. They're closer to the top of the album, but I like the italicized font on the Beatles right here on the US version. I also like the track layout better here, how it's separated with the logo. I mean, it's a tough call, but I'm gonna have to go with the US version. Now here's where we find the major differences between the two albums. Capitol removed Drive My Car, Nowhere Man, What Goes On, and If I Needed Someone, and added I've Just Seen a Face and It's Only Love. The exact reasoning as to why Capitol changed what they did, we may never know. Some people speculate that they were trying to promote Rubber Soul as a folk rock album because the folk scene was so popular at this time, so they removed Drive My Car and What Goes On because they were too rock and roll to be folk. Whatever the reason, I'm totally cool with the changes because Drive My Car is one of my least favorite Beatles songs. And that's probably because I heard it played to death as a soundbite before the traffic report by the local radio station. So I associate it with getting up early and going to school. Yeah, I know it's not fair, but that's just how I feel. I've Just Seen a Face took its place as the album opener on the US version. I think this was a superb move by Capitol. It really sets a great mood for the whole record, and it's the perfect lead up to Norwegian Wood. It almost makes up for the loss of Nowhere Man on this record. That song is a childhood favorite, and I love that sequence in Yellow Submarine. It pains me to know that it's not on the US version. Side 2 on the UK release kicks off with What Goes On. The Beatles are doing this Travis-picking rockabilly number, and while it's cool and all, it just doesn't cut it for me. So I'm happy that Capitol replaced it with It's Only Love. Lastly, the song I'm Looking Through You has a false start on it that only appears on US stereo versions. You hear the main guitar riff start, but then it stops, only to start again. You see, when Parlophone sent over the stereo masters to the US, it was intended that the false start would be edited out of the final release, but someone at Capitol thought this was part of the song and left it on there. While it's interesting historically, it's just a false start. It doesn't do anything for me, and it's not the version I'm used to hearing, nor is it the one I want to hear. If you want stereo, I say go with the UK version. Whew, let me tell you guys, this is a hard pick for me. I don't really have a favorite out of the gate, but after really listening to both albums, I'm gonna have to pick the US version over the UK. I know, calm down. It's just, I feel it's a more concise album. It has a great flow from song to song, and it feels like a more complete listening experience. I really like the songs they added, and with the exception of Nowhere Man, I like what they took out. To be even more specific, I'm gonna pick the US mono version purely because I think the stereo version is odd, especially if you're listening on headphones, because you have all the vocals on one side and all the instruments on the other with nothing in the middle. Supposedly they did this so it would sound good on mono record players, but that just doesn't make any sense to me. That's like making a crappier Blu-ray so it'll look good on DVD players. You know what I mean? I know the Capitol release isn't exactly what the Beatles intended to do, but at the same time, I don't feel like they were necessarily thinking of making an album in the same sense as they were when they made Sgt. Pepper's. We can assume because they were present for the mono mixes, they had a say in the track layout and what would make a good album. Without doing more research, I just don't know how important it was for them to have this album be seen as one cohesive work versus just a platform to sell music. I think the fact that we can even talk about this is a testament to a bygone era. Now the world is so much smaller and things are generally the same everywhere. But hey, that's just my opinion. How do you guys feel? Let me know which version you prefer and why. What do you think of this new episode format? I got a couple more up my sleeve. Maybe you have some ideas for upcoming Versus episodes as well. Let me know, guys. Well, that is all the time I have for you. Thank you for watching, and be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already. I am your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Whoa, you're still here! Hey, thanks for watching the episode. Now, if you want to get even more Beatles action, click here. I do a review on Please Please Me, their first album released ever in the UK. It's over 50 years old. And if you like what I was drinking, you want to find out more about it, maybe make your own, it's called a Brandy Alexander, and you can learn how to do it right here. Go ahead. Yeah, click that one. Cool. I see you're still here. You haven't clicked yet. That's all right. We can hang out, just you and me. I don't have anything else to say right now. I got nothing to do, actually, for a while.